Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. The other day, I was in the grocery store and I asked the checkout lady, how do you feel about the upcoming release of mask restrictions? Pretty soon, people will not be required to wear a mask. She said, well, I'm not so sure about it. She said, I've gotten kind of used to it and I might just keep wearing my mask for a while anyway. And it reminded me of a character in that wonderful movie, A Princess Bride. There's a fellow named Inigo Montoya, and he has spent most of his life seeking the person who killed his father so he could avenge his father's death. And he has a very funny manner of swishing his sword and practicing on people, saying, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. Kind of funny the way he does that. And then finally, he meets the assassin and he does him in. And as he's leaving the castle with his sidekick, Inigo's sidekick says to him, well, Inigo, now that you've avenged your father's death, what are you going to do? And Inigo gets a blank look on his face and he says, I don't know. He said, I've been in the revenge business for so long that I don't know what to do without it. And so we could extrapolate that to the protection business or the defense business or the hiding business. I've been wearing my mask for so long that I don't know if I could go back to a world without masks. It's kind of weird, isn't it? But it's a psychological phenomenon. And so people who've been through a trauma, and really COVID has been traumatic for our culture and our world in many ways, and you are used to a certain protection against the trauma, when the trauma is actually removed, it's very common for people want to continue the protection even though it's no longer necessary or helpful. And we saw this phenomenon after World War II. There were soldiers who were holed up in the jungles of islands of the South Pacific, and they didn't know the war was over. And so they, for many, many years, they continued to remain defensive, and they thought the war was still going on, even though it ended a long, long time ago. So it appears that the COVID war is ending soon, or gradually, thank God. And a lot of us have adopted various postures, a lot of them fear-based. Some of them are certainly reason-based, but a lot of them are fear-based. And we've gone into hiding, so to speak. We've gone into self-protection. And the word mask, the word persona, comes from the Greek. It's a Greek word which means mask. And the word personality comes from Greek for persona. And so even walking around as a human being in a physical body with a social presentation is a form of mask. So I'm really taking this idea of mask much deeper than just removing your COVID mask. I'm, in this case, applying it to all forms of protection, all forms of, in many cases, fear-based defensiveness, all forms of hiding, all forms of veiling our true self. And recently in my Soul and Destiny course, we were talking about what is the soul and what is the body, what is the relationship between body and soul. And I explained that you are not a body that has a soul, you are a soul that has a body. Big difference. And as human beings, as bodies that have been trained to be bodies and think we're bodies only and not a soul, what we've done is we have shrunken our soul, our true self, to the tiniest proportion as a body only. Our nature as a soul is infinitely larger and more expansive than thinking you're a body. So if you think you're just a body, it's like whoosh, there was a movie series called Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Well, one of my chapters in the book is called Honey, I Shrunk My Soul. Because to believe you're only a body and only a social presentation, only a weight and only an address and only an age and only a gender, only a culture, it's a huge, huge contraction. And the amount of contracting and veiling that you have to do to walk around thinking I'm only a body is insane, and it's incredible and it's unbelievable. And none of us really have an idea how much we have shrunk our soul to become a body, which is a form of masking. Do you understand? It's kind of covering our true self, our true spiritual nature, with a belief and presentation, I'm just a body. That's a mask, isn't it? See? So there's a story I've told for many, many years, and I think it might even be more appropriate to tell it today. And that's the story of the Golden Buddha. And the story goes that, it's a true story actually, that hundreds of years ago in Bangkok, Thailand, there was a monastery that had a huge golden Buddha on its grounds. And monks at the monastery got word one day that an army from a neighboring country was going to invade their city. And so they realized that if this army passed by their monastery and saw this huge golden Buddha, they would plunder it for the gold. So they came up with a scheme, and they decided to cover the Buddha with a cement of stones and mud. So it would look like a stone Buddha rather than a golden Buddha. And so they worked feverishly, and they did this. And they achieved the stone Buddha. Well, sure enough, this army, the invading army, came through the town, and they saw the stone Buddha. They certainly didn't care about that, and they kept marching. So the golden Buddha was safe. Well, something very interesting happened. That army in that country occupied the town for a long time. And monks came and went, and people came and went from the town. And there came a time when no one remembered that the Buddha was golden. Everyone thought it was stone. And then a new king arose, and he ordered this, quote, stone Buddha to be moved to another place. And as these workers were moving the stone Buddha, something chipped off, a piece chipped off of the Buddha, and something shiny was revealed. And they looked at it and they realized, hey, this is gold. And they started picking and moving, and they realized, my God, this is not a stone Buddha. This is a golden Buddha. And of course, they chipped all the cement away, and they revealed the full glory and splendor of the real stone Buddha, the real golden Buddha. And you can still go to this day in Bangkok, Thailand, to the temple of the golden Buddha that was once covered with stone and not known as gold, and then finally once again revealed as golden. So why am I telling the story? Well, as we've gone through this COVID situation, the pandemic, a lot of us have layered ourselves with protectionism and distancing, isolation, a lot of it reason-based and a lot of it fear-based. And so now that we can release ourselves from the defenses that the pandemic required, the question is, are you ready to go back to who you were before you got afraid or before you protected yourself? It's a big question. And so when my cashier at the grocery store, I don't know if I'm ready to take my mask off. It was symbolic. I don't know if I'm ready to peel away the cement that has covered my golden nature. Well, the answer is, of course, eventually we're all going to have to reclaim our golden nature. And that nature is one of wholeness and magnificence and connection. I'm looking forward to hugging people again. I'm looking forward to seeing faces behind the mask. I miss seeing people's smiles. I mean, all I see now are eyes for the most part. I mean, can you handle the intimacy of seeing a human face once again, or touching a human being, or going to a concert with hundreds of people close to you? And you might have this reaction, ooh, I don't know if I want to be with 100 people close to me, but it's going to happen again. Life is going to be back to, I wouldn't say normal like it was. It's going to be a new normal, of course. But the time of protectionism and fear and defensiveness is coming to an end. Maybe not overnight, but gradually the cement Buddha will be put aside for the golden Buddha. So the question is, are you ready and willing to take your mask off? Not just physically, but symbolically. Or will you be like one of those soldiers holed up in the South Pacific jungle, still thinking the war is going on when it's not? And let's even extend this to all of life. You know, we've all had pains, we all had traumas, we've all had times when we had to go within and guard ourselves and protect ourselves from some perceived alien force that could hurt us. And the truth is that we are much bigger and stronger than any pandemic. We are much bigger and stronger than any trauma. Someone once asked Abraham Hicks, Abraham, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. And Abraham gave a brilliant answer. You have no idea what an old dog you are. Now, what did Abraham mean by that? Well, you think that you are your childhood programming. You think that you are the result of the pains and traumas you've experienced. And Abraham was saying, no. That who you are, you're a much older dog. You're much deeper, stronger, bigger, more powerful, more whole, more valiant spirit than any trauma or any experience, any pandemic, any childhood, anything that's ever happened to you that was traumatic indeed on a personality level, but at a spiritual level, it cannot touch you. It cannot touch the real you. The real you has never been touched by any of the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune that Shakespeare wrote about. The real you has never been touched by a pandemic. Not really, not in spirit. And so here we are, we have a new opportunity to be our real selves. And I truly mean glory, hallelujah. That is a blessing. We're coming out of the cave and into the light. And even Plato talked about with his famous analogy of the cave. And if you've been in darkness for a long time and your eyes used to being closed, when you step out into the light, it's going to hurt your eyes a little bit. It's going to be a period of adjustment. But the only alternative, there's two alternatives: to shrink back into the dark and stay there, or to step out into the light. Well, I, for one, would like to step into the light, and I believe if you're watching this broadcast, you are joining me in that. So let us celebrate the coming of the light. Let us celebrate the end of the pandemic as it comes, probably gradually, but it's coming. And let us be willing to remove our masks, not just physically and spiritually, but spiritually, so we can reveal the splendor and the glory of the golden Buddha that we all are. Thanks for coming. I hope this has been valuable to you. We'll see you next week.